Peter Godfrey on 1395, Adelaide's FiveAA.
7 minutes past 5 now, and let's head across the ditch, see what's happening across in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning, editor of EveningReport.nz, joins us. How are you, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter. Not too bad at all. We've had a bit of inclement weather since I spoke to you last week, but it's certainly settled down. But last weekend, we were talking about a weather bomb last week.
That's right, yeah.
Weren't we? And how it was moving its way up the country. Well, it certainly blew into Auckland and pulled out power. There was something like 10 to 15,000 homes that were without power by Saturday night. Went through, toppled trees, all sorts of things going on, and gave it a good clean up, Peter, a good drenching there.
Watered the pot plants and topped up the rainwater tanks a little.
Yes, that's for sure.
Okay,
yeah, but certainly, the power was the big thing, and there were messages coming out from Vector, I guess that's the primary provider. That the other electric companies latch into, and all of that. The warnings coming from Vector that they were going to be doing maintenance for some time. So we'll see how that all shapes up. But yeah, certainly it was all plugged back in generally by the end of Sunday for everybody, really. There were still a couple of outlying communities that were struggling to keep a steady flow, but that was pretty much the thing.
Okay.
But at the moment, Peter, the weather is much more settled. Looks like we're heading into Auckland anniversary weekend, so it's a holiday for people who live in the Auckland region on Monday. It looks like it's going to be quite a good one.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. What sort of temperatures are you talking there?
We're talking around 23, 24. It's certainly still seasonally quite cold compared to what you'd expect this time of year generally, but overnight it's around 17 degrees, but 24 is about right. So for you guys, it'll be a bit of a chilly day for us after this summer, how it's been tracking in the low 20s at best. 24 degrees feels quite warm.
Well, there we go. We got 32 in comparison to you for today, so...
Oh, there you go.
Beautiful.
You won't be wrapped up with your winter willies on that one.
No, not at all, not at all. Hey, random question to ask you, just following on from a random topic we had come up earlier on, some of the terminology for parts of our cars that differs between us and the United States. Now, we have, we throw things in the boot of the car, whereas they have the trunk. We've got the, we pop the bonnet to check the oil, whereas they pop the hood. What are do you follow our terminology, or do you have some of the American terminology for parts of your car, or...?
I think you guys follow us, Peter.
Oh, is that? Well said. Well said.
Yeah. We flip the bonnet up, mate, will you?
Yep.
That kind of thing. And someone get the tyre jack out of the boot of the Holden.
Yep.
It'll be that kind of thing. I think we're pretty much in tune there. Like over here too, there's be careful when you're walking down the footpath.
Footpath, not the sidewalk. Yeah, so you're with us on that too.
Sidewalk. What's a couple of others?
Oh, what was a couple of others we had? If you're going out to do some work on your car, do you get your spanner out, or do you get your wrench out?
Oh, the spanner. Definitely the spanner.
Spanner with us.
Then there's the things like don't put the crowbar under your seat. I think there's all sorts of names. Earlier on, a lot of the tradesmen here in New Zealand, right up to the 70s, would be referring to the crowbar as a jimmy bar.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
But that seems to have phased out. The crowbar is...
Crowbar's won through.
It's come through, yeah.
Okay. I think we've always used crowbar.
But definitely a spanner.
Spanner, yep.
There's the screwdriver, of course, and the Americans kind of pinched that, didn't they, for the nice drink with orange and vodka?
Oh, that's that's a completely different one entirely. There we go.
Absolutely.
So essentially, we talk the same language, and the only the point we might differ on is whether you speak our language or we speak yours.
Yes, that's the debate, I guess. The other thing is, if you're over here in New Zealand visiting, and quite a few Australians certainly are enjoying, coming to New Zealand. Maybe they want to cool down in the middle of summer. I don't know. You guys might be, but anyway, the thing there is, if you're walking along, and you say something about, I like your thongs. say that in New Zealand, you might get a strange look, because you're in all your innocence, Peter, you'd be talking about your wonderful jandals that you've got on. We call them jandals. You guys call them the thongs. And we call thongs, a thong here is a G-string.
A G-string, yeah. Well, there's where you're following the Americans. They would likewise refer to that piece of undergarment as a G-string, whereas we put our G-string, we put our thong on our feet, not on our posterior.
The Americans been quite immune to the Australian quirks in such ways. They'd be sitting there thinking, why would you put your thongs on your feet?
Oh, dear. Yes.
Very good.
There we go. Whilst we're on sort of things motoring, how's your petrol prices looking over there at the moment?
Yeah, one of the stations here in Auckland that kind of trends where exactly it's sitting is one of the Gull ones on New North Road in Auckland. And that's sitting at the moment at this Kiwi dollars, of course, and it's $1.87 for 91 unleaded, Peter.
$1.87, ouch.
Now, that's the cheapest you'll find.
Yeah.
That, just up the road from there's a Z station that's a good 10 cents or more above that. Down in the South Island, like last week, we talked about that road trip it went on. You're paying $2.15 in some areas for 91 unleaded.
Cool.
So that's big. And if we look at the exchange rate, people are thinking, the Kiwi dollar's a bit different to ours over here in Australia. We're looking at about 96 cents to Australia. So that's not too much difference.
Not a big difference there. Yeah, not to account for that big difference in petrol price.
Yeah, and you guys are sitting way down in the dollars, aren't you?
For petrol?
Yeah.
Yeah, just looked up. I've only got a daily average price here at the moment, but for the 91 unleaded, $1.18.
$1.18. Well, boy, that's a big difference. I know in Sydney, when I'm over there, I notice it's more expensive than you guys, but certainly, if you went up into the 20s too much, you'd be starting to really complain. But $1.87, that's the cheapest for a wee while. I know it dipped down to $1.77 for about half a day early in the week, and then smacked back up there again, Peter. So pretty expensive, isn't it? Really, comparatively.
Yeah, indeed. And given the dollars are not that far apart, yours and ours, that certainly doesn't account for it. Yeah. How's your dollar tracking against the US dollar?
It's sitting around the. Have a quick look here. It's 72.5 cents.
Okay.
To the US. That's against the New Zealand dollar to the US. So it's kind of stabilised. There was a point there with when before Trump took on, it was actually the US dollar was increasing in value compared to the New Zealand dollar, and the Kiwi was just sinking down a bit, which was good for the exports. It kind of nudged up over the Christmas period to around that 72, 73 US cents per dollar, and so it's kind of just hovering there. If it starts tracking up again in value against the US through the year, you'll hear us all complaining that it's getting too hot. The Kiwi dollar's getting too hot, and it's stifling the export returns that are going out of the country. So at the moment, it's kind of tolerable, and a lot of the farmers have had benefits as far as the global dairy price for milk powder has been increasing over the last 3 months, and so things aren't as stressed as they were going into the spring last year, where things were looking very, very dire for, it had been quite dire for a good 6-7 months at that stage. So things are not too bad at the moment, Peter, but if you look around, a lot of that is obviously to do with Donald Trump, and as he's settling into his presidency, and if you look at the headlines in the New Zealand Herald, it's watch Trump live after Mexican president cancels US trip. You go across to Fairfax's stuff, and it's pretty much the same. Live, Trump on Mexico cancels US things. You go across to Radio New Zealand, it's a little bit different here. I mean, we've got a controversy leading the story. 5,000 dairy cows, Peter, China bound on a Saudi businessman's ship. Now, the controversy around that is, one, the live shipments of cattle going across to China, 5,000 of them on the ship. It's a little bit better than that aircraft that had, the 1,000 sheep on it. Singapore Airlines chartered, and it was off, Imagine piloting that. Would have been an experience, certainly, when you go around with your cup of tea halfway through the flight or something. But this controversy around this cattle, Peter, is because of the Saudi businessman that was involved in the so-called New Zealand Saudi sheep scandal, and that was one we mentioned on your program going back probably about 8 months ago, and that was relating to the New Zealand Foreign Affairs Minister Murray McCully, who's standing down this year. That was he'd done some back-end deal that the Cabinet had approved, and it went all the way to the Auditor General to see whether or not it was corrupt, or, and some people would say, was it corruption or incompetence, and others would say, well, it was okay, it was a deal that was in New Zealand's favour. But it was a very, very strange deal that went on. We spoke about that then. And anyway, this Saudi businessman is the same guy that was involved. He was the recipient of quite a few $1 million of New Zealand taxpayer money to basically help him set up a New Zealand sheep farm in Saudi Arabia, which most of them died at the time. So this is big. New Zealand, Radio New Zealand is looking into that, and it's obviously going to be one that the politicians will be having to justify or talk more on a topic that they don't want to talk much on. So those are the headlines that we're wrapping around the country at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Just on that with the export of cattle, I mean, does New Zealand do a lot of livestock exports?
No. This is the big controversy that was in behind the controversy. New Zealand, in the latter part of the Helen Clark-led government, our trade minister at the time, Phil Godfrey, who is now Auckland's mayor, he went cold on the idea and actually put in regulation that prevented it under almost all circumstances. That Saudi businessman I was talking about, he was one of those that objected, and particularly when the Nationals came into power here under John Key, and Murray McCully was charged to try and settle down any fear, according to McCully, that there would be a legal challenge that was stifling this businessman's opportunities, perhaps, which seemed a long bow to draw, really, on the whole thing when the whole thing was looked at very closely. But, that was all down to so-called live sheep exports being stopped by New Zealand and the impact that would have on business people in Saudi. Then it was all mucked up and murky, relating to New Zealand trying to leverage a free trade agreement with Saudi Arabia and trying to get those on side, and this person was particularly well positioned apparently. But this one here with the live sheep going on a ship across to China, that's one that seems to raise a number of questions as to New Zealanders, I think, believe that it has been put on hold, or at least a moratorium on it, and it seems like that's not the case here, and it's not so clear. So good on Radio New Zealand for digging into that, and no doubt that will actually become a big issue again.
Okay. On to another big issue. We've touched on Donald Trump into his first week as the US president, and he's been busy with his pen signing off things and putting lines through things. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, which has been big news here since he put that line through it. What's been the reaction over your side of the ditch?
Yeah, well, look, the critics of the TPPA were very much applauding that decision because it was believed right up until midweek, or early in the week, that the US out of the TPP would mean that the TPPA would fall over, mean the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement would fall over. All those countries in the Asia-Pacific region that had been signatories to that would have no real advantage if the United States economy was not a part of that. Now, we saw Bill English, our new Prime Minister, Peter, he came out and he said earlier in the week that, no, there might be life in the TPPA yet. And we're looking at what opportunities still exist there. And then the next day, Malcolm Turnbull came out and said something similar, and also put China into the frame there about being introduced into the pact. Now that started to ring a few bells over here, and there's been a lot of examination as to what's really going on in behind the scenes and behind the public sphere, if you like, or where we all look at things. It seems that our trade people and our mutual departments of your Department of Trade, of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and our Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade have been working very, very solidly and behind the scenes to actually find some life there. China, remember though, is in the box seat here. If New Zealand and Australia want this TPPA to go ahead by bringing in the big China economy, well, certainly that solves that issue of pulling the US out. But remember, we've already got, both of our countries have already got free trade agreements with China. So what's the deal there? What's the advantage for Australia? What's the advantage for New Zealand? Now, the politicians on this side of the ditch, Peter, have not come clean on what advantages there would be for New Zealand should China come into the fray. Remember, China, once again, in that box seat, it seems like our two countries are positioning as desperate sellers. So what are we going to give away? You know, a lot of the discussion. There was an item on 36 Parallel by Dr. Paul Buchanan. He's an analyst in such things, and also published on Evening Report. And he's looking at some of the benefits of stripping out some of the more controversial and well, put it this way, difficult kind of elements that the US was insisting on when it was negotiating under the Obama regime. Now it's out of the picture. He's actually arguing and saying, you know, there could be a good pact here if we do not actually pursue those things like the giving away the sovereignty relating to the trade interest and business interests of corporations, that type of thing. So China, everybody's starting now, media-wise, this is looking at China to actually see where China is playing this. Is it going to continue on in discussions with our two countries and trying to actually salvage this? And how does that work in with Japan, Singapore, Thailand, all of those others that are in the Asia-Pacific region? What are their views on it? So are our two countries leading the charge on this one, Peter, or are we just trying to actually salvage something that our governments have invested so much time and expertise in, trying to get it over the line?
So it seems both your Prime Minister and ours are pretty much on the same page as to what they're wanting.
Sounds like there were a lot of cables going across the Tasman backwards and forwards before they started seeding this information out into the public.
Indeed. On to a lighter note. Now, this is interesting, a story that's got a lot of interest here. Over your side of the ditch as well, these photos of a young surfer that his father was taking photos of. Surprisingly, seeing there was a great white surfing around with him. Amazing photos.
New Zealand Herald published last night, and a fantastic photo, isn't it? You know, with the guy, the young boy, 10 years old, on a surfboard, scooting down the wave. I'm not too flash on my surfing manoeuvres, Peter. So
neither am I. No, I'm not either.
But you can see the white, the great white, coming along with it, as they said in the caption, smiling. You know,
smiling, it looks
through the wave toward him, and the boy saying, well, he didn't really realise until he heard his father calling him in, and he thought, oh, there must be sharks out there. But there you go. I mean, it's a fantastic issue in the sense, isn't it? You know, of obviously somebody who hasn't been hurt in such a close encounter with such a formidable predator of the sea, and a reminder of, you know, let's always be vigilant for those that are out there too.
And I guess the other aspect too is that had the father not been there taking the photo, then, you know, the boy was clearly not aware that it was there, and you know, begs the question of how often have we been out swimming when there's been a shark in the vicinity and we were just totally oblivious to it.
I know. I won't bore you with too many of the old shark tales. I know a friend of mine and myself was sitting out in an old plastic or fiberglass dinghy some years ago, just up off Cape Rodney around Lee, which is north of Auckland there by about an hour and a half's drive. And it's quite deep sea, just off a shelf there, off a reef, and we're just on the edge of the reef. And cause he didn't have very good eyesight, and he kind of said to me, I wasn't paying much attention, but he said to me, what's that thing just coming down here? And it was like early morning, beautiful, fine day, no real wind, a bit of a swell running, and this thing, I just looked casually and said, oh, it looks like a shag or something, you know, the bird diving bird. And it got a bit closer. A little bit close, and he says, doesn't look like a shag to me, and he's squinting looking at it, and I had a look, and it was a thrasher shark. Its great big tail sticking out of the water, you know, and we did the wrong thing. If we sat there quiet, it would have just kind of basked its way down the channel and out into the ocean part, but he touched the anchor warp, the anchor rope there, and a bit of a rattle, I suppose, and this thing woke up, completely went for us, charged at us. That went under the boat, probably about 2 metres behind the stern of the short, small dinghy.
Yeah.
We never saw it again, and that was probably the most eerie part.
Well, that can be the worst thing, can't it?
Just looking around, thinking, well, is it gone, or is it here? But that was my close encounter with the shark. Another time just learning to sail out in the ocean part there, and another small dinghy, and one just tracking every time I tacked. But it went away. It wasn't too bad. But that one was a bit too close. A bit
too close for comfort. Yeah, I could well imagine. Do you get many reports of sharks on New Zealand's more popular beaches?
Yeah, we have. You know, I think it's the wonderful thing, isn't it, of the new technologies with cameras just about everywhere. So there's a lot more sightings, and perhaps in 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that buoy in New South Wales, what we were just talking about with the close encounter with the great white there, no one would have known. Whereas now, it's being picked up. So, here in New Zealand, we're getting a lot more of that. Particularly, the great whites are coming. They traditionally will go down St Kilda Beach in Dunedin, which is cool water down there, but they seem to love it down there. And there's all sorts of science going around about, what are their migration habits between you guys in South Australia and up your coast there and coming down into New Zealand's waters there. So, definitely. We get a lot of Mako sharks.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, Mako sharks, big boys those fellas are, and bronze whalers and hammerheads and all of that type of thing around the coast as well. So people are vigilant. Yeah, it's a bit of an eye-opener. I was walking along one morning up in North Bay of Islands, just north of Bay of Islands area. And there'd been a storm the night before, and there was this huge Mako that was must have got stranded and disorientated or something that was lying on the beach. Boy, he was a whopper. He was, must have been, getting right up there around 12 feet long, something like that.
I've remind myself not to go near the water when you're around Selwyn. You seem to attract them with those stories.
Maybe there's something about my meat, Peter,
Maybe. Maybe there's. Have to leave it there, Selwyn. Thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks for switching days with us, and we'll catch you again Thursday morning next week.
All good. Sorry about the shark yarns. Peter,
no, that's all right.
Dominating your station for 2 years talking about such things.
Well, I won't be going down the beach today, I'll tell you that much for it.
Okay, Peter.
Thanks, Selwyn. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Selwyn Manning with us from New Zealand, editor of EveningReport.nz. Coming